Hey, how you doing? Good, thank you.
I guess some comments.
Sure.
We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
You indicated in there that you were proactive.
Correct.
And you were prepared before the storm. What would you have done differently standing here today?
Well, what I could tell you that when you look at the results that we've seen to get 1 million customers on within 48 hours, the planning and everything that we've done appropriately has been working. We have to ask and try to get the resources. Typically what we do when you look at from the industry perspective responding to storms, the storms are unpredictable and you don't know exactly what the extent of that damage is going to be. So traditionally, utilities will ride out the storm, assess the damage, and then ask for crews. For us to be able to try to work as effectively, efficiently as possible, we want to go ahead and start requesting the crews that we need. And again, keep in mind, that is, with the information that we had based on the storm, initially thinking that it wasn't going to hit us, then it was going to partially hit us, we were able to still secure the resources necessary. So we were operating our operations plan with just the limited information that we had prior to the storm. As the storm was going, we were recognizing that we're being hit directly. We're actually increasing the number of crews that we had. And so we feel that we've done everything on our part to be prepared. And I could say in my 26 years history working with CenterPoint Energy, to have staging sites mobile up and operating for thousands of crews, we're talking about creating circuit-sized tents to house and feed crews by the hundreds. We're talking about tables, we're talking about chairs, we're talking about offices, we're talking about staff resources to manage inventory. That inventory consisting of hundreds of 50-foot, 60-foot poles on the ground, all the transformers necessary. They need to be able to park and secure their vehicles. We need to make sure we got the porta potties out there. All of those things that take place to have that up and running within 14 hours, I've just never seen that before. And then again, you look at in 2021 when we had Hurricane Nicholas, there were 700,000 plus customers that were without power. We were able to restore them within 5 days. We did that here within 24 hours. We could not have done that if we were not prepared. So I feel very confident with our preparation that we've done. Unfortunately, this is a category hurricane that we've experienced. It's done significant damage to our facilities. We're going to have to rebuild it, and that's going to take time.
I square some of the statements that CenterPoint officials have made. We've heard other officials say that the forecast surprised you guys, that you were not expecting this storm to hit Houston. But then I also heard you say several times that you guys weren't prepared for this storm. And how do you square those two things?
Well, you have to prepare, and you have to make sure that you're staying on top of it, and you have to make sure we don't want to be caught unguarded. And so I'll give you an example for Hurricane Laura. We were fully prepared. We did the same thing we did to restore and respond to that hurricane, and it went through Louisiana, and we didn't see any of it. So we try to get prepared regardless.
But were you guys prepared for a Category 1 hurricane to get direct on Houston? That's what happened.
Yes, and I can say that because when you look at our response, when you look at the amount of materials that we had, if we weren't prepared, we wouldn't be able to have our staging sites set up. We wouldn't have the necessary materials. We're not trying to scrounge and scavenge materials. We are fully prepared for the damage that we have. And I just want to rest assured there's some feedback that we heard. People were wondering if we had shortage of supplies and materials. That is not the case.
You say you're fully prepared, but yet there are over 1 million people in this area who still don't have power. What do you say to those people when you're standing here saying you were fully prepared?
Yeah, so the preparation is in our response. And unfortunately, when you have a hurricane that does damage to our facilities, it's unfortunate the extent of damage that we have.
Is it accurate to say you were fully prepared?
Yes. When we're looking at resiliency, you're looking at how you use your ability to take a punch, but the preparation is how we respond, how we're able to pick back up, how we're able to go. And so you will never be able to fully withstand a hurricane. You're going to have damage to your facilities. The question is, how do you get back up and do everything you can to get it restored as quickly and efficiently as possible. And that's what we're prepared for, and that's what we're doing.
And Brad, the points that we heard inside there is that we're the energy capital. We are obviously a city of innovation going back for decades. But yet, in the middle of a hurricane and in the aftermath, you had millions of your clients having to go to a fast food app, Whataburger, to find out if electricity was working or not. But yet your company couldn't provide that.
So it's unfortunate what we're able to observe with our outage tracker. During derecho, when our outage tracker was up and running, what we didn't anticipate was the amount of pings from third parties and robots basically oversaturating our system and causing it to crash. So we were working around the clock to try to get up and running. And when we're having issues in one direction, we tried another and then another. And what we're able to find is that that system was not salvageable. So we have already, prior to the storm, got with a third party to build a cloud-based outage tracker system that we hoped to have before our typical hurricane season, which is August and September, to have it up and running by then. It's just unfortunate that the timing that we didn't have it.
Were the resiliency plans filed in April with the state the first time that CenterPoint has filed resiliency plans?
So the resiliency filing that we filed in April is the first time ever resiliency filing. And we were able to do that courtesy of the legislation that took place last summer. And again, we made the argument just because we recognize the challenges that our community faces when they're without power, the need and the necessity to get back up and running as quickly as possible. As you mentioned, what we prepare for is our ability to respond, but what we'd like to do is be able to make our infrastructure stronger, harder, so that we won't have to be rebuilding our system as much as just rehabilitating, and we could be able to get that restoration down significantly.
Can you talk about some of the specifics of what might be in that plan? I understand it was about $2.2 billion and a timeline of how long it would take to get that.
So that's over, our resiliency plan is over 3 years. And what we are looking at doing is, it's a lot of things cohesively to look at how to make our system more resilient to respond to events such as this. That includes replacing aging infrastructure. That includes modernizing our grid. That includes strategic undergrounding, doing items to help with our flood mitigation. All of those, it's all encompassing of the things that we deem necessary to make sure that we can not have to suffer what we're seeing now in situations like this.
What would the process be to get that approved, and then we could start ideally?
So we're in process right now. That's being reviewed with the Texas Public Utility Commissioners, and there are our stakeholders such as the City of Houston, the other surrounding communities, industrial communities. They're all reviewing the plan, providing their support or their opinions on what they think makes sense to help with the program, the plan, and then it'll go before the Public Utility Commission.
Did CenterPoint at all last night work with the Astros or MLB baseball to have the lights on at Minute Maid?
No, not that I'm aware of. So our downtown system is underground. And we have what we refer to as our dedicated underground system. So typically, because when you have wind events that are due to trees is where you see the damage. And so the baseball stadium is not a priority, but it is on our underground system. But I can tell you that even though that we had our underground system, which typically doesn't experience items with wind events, it can with flooding. So we did have some issues downtown because of
And does the new construction process in terms of going underground with new construction, does that also include homes that are being gentrified, that are being completely demolished? Because that we see a lot of that in Houston where that's why. New construction, I get it. If it's Bridgeland, I completely get that.
Sure.
But if it's in Houston where you have a lot of people tearing down homes and putting in new ones, is the electricity being redone in those homes to go underground?
So when it comes to undergrounding facilities, we have to do what makes sense. And we've done an analysis to say, where is the benefit for the restoration process? And the problem is when you're going to some of these homes that you're rebuilding, you're looking at one particular house. And what we're looking at is how circuits are impacted. So going and undergrounding one particular house is not going to have a restoration benefit. So that's not really going to make a lot of sense.
Brian, separate from the map, webpage that you guys have that tracks the number of outages in the city or in your coverage area, and then like that has been updated this morning and it removed the number of restorations that have happened and the number that have happened in the last 24 hours. Do you have any idea why that is?
I do not know.
I guess we have a lot of questions about that because you guys have this 1 million restoration promise that you made, and
right.
your tracker that says how many restores have gone. Is that something that you don't know any further information about that?
I don't, and it might be because of our RT folks they're working to try to put an outage tracker map together, and sometimes for us to be able to transfer data from one, we might have to take our system down in that process, but it's nothing that would be different from that. So.
And one other thing I want to ask you about this 14-hour staging. You know, I was a reporter in Louisiana before this, so this is also not my first rodeo, unfortunately. I remember vividly coming in probably 6 hours after Hurricane Ida, Category 4. I was there out of Houma, Louisiana, which is like right on the coast.
We were probably
driving
there.
down the interstate with hundreds of line trucks coming in. They were clearly staged beforehand. Yes. How does that square? I guess if you're saying that getting these people together 14 hours after the storm came through is a feat of preparation. When I'm aware of hurricanes where these folks are staged well beforehand and are coming in to do the work hours after the storm.
So we have to clarify. That's to have the staging site fully open and operational. The crews, the convoys that you're referring to, they showed up as soon as the storm rolled out. What we're talking about is when they come in, those crews are fed, they're trained, they're put to bed, and they're fully aware of what their expectations are, what their responsibilities are for the storm restoration. So when they get up first thing in the morning, we have a very fluid, efficient process where they drive up, they get their food, they get their work orders, they drive over, they get all the necessary inventory, and they're out in the field. So the 14 hours is what I was talking about, was getting that specific staging site set up. Because again, we're looking at a very monumental task when we have all those facilities to provide, as I mentioned before, for that. So with that, I want to say thank you guys.
Are you a client of CenterPoint?
I am a client of CenterPoint.
Like most people in this area, you're a
Exactly.
client. So this said, you pay in every month to a system that you rely on, but it didn't deliver in this storm as of right now. How is CenterPoint going to make it up to the millions of customers who are going to be watching this?
So as far as our system performance, it's the largest disaster as far as the outages that we've ever seen. And that's a hurricane. That's true of hurricanes. There is no silver bullet to being able to respond to those hurricanes. I think what the solution is looking at it from a resiliency perspective and what we can do to strengthen and harden our infrastructure. And we're having a lot of support from our legislators, our Texas Public Utility Commission, to do just that. And I think that's going to be the key moving forward in the future.
But what we'd like to understand is that this was a Hurricane 1 category storm, and Houston has seen much worse. So what has caused this to be the worst power outage that y'all have seen?
So every storm is unpredictable. Hurricane Nicholas was a Category 1, and we didn't see the extent of the damage that we've had. I think one of the issues that we've noticed that's specific with this is the amount of rain that we had. The ground is saturated. It's causing trees that are outside of our easement to fall on our lines. And so the number of fallen trees is, I think, one of the major factors that we've had.
You said the IT guys are working on putting together an outage tracker, because you said once you guys make that assessment, tonight you're hoping to have that done and hoping to localize it in some fashion. What can you're thinking of that might look like?
So I'm not sure because I'm not working with them, but I would probably label it more as a map to kind of help give you an idea of what we're looking at. The question is, as far as how the detail that we can get, I'm not really sure, but we're doing everything that we can to try to get the most updated information as quickly as possible. We recognize how hard it is for customers to not know how long they're going to be without power. We want to give you that information. We are motivated to give you that information. We want to do everything that we can to give you that information. So we are working around the clock to try to get whatever we can the best way possible.
What's your official title, Brad?
I'm Brad Tutunjian, Vice President of Regulatory Policy at CenterPoint Energy.
Got it.